Jade Cargill is your new WWE Women's Champion. We're going to speak about that and so much more. This is WrstlXtra. Yo, this is WrstlXtra. I'm your boy, A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate, always joined by my tag team partner. Say his name, he shall appear, the Oracle, the man that is Gerard Bonner. How are we doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I think I sound a little bit hoarse. I'm not too sure. But we're here for it.
You were too busy screaming for Jade over the weekend, huh?
I'm screaming because I got scared during Halloween weekend too.
Yeah.
Of course, we had that too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all screams of joy and happiness. Jade Cargill defeated Tiffany Stratton at Saturday night's main event to become the new WWE Women's Champion. Gerard, I'm going to go straight into this one with this question. How did you feel about the way it was done, given that Tiffany was injured, given that we now have a new heel, Jade Cargill?
I loved all of it. I loved it from the moment she turned. You know, we said, and I was one of them who said right here on this show, we do not believe Jade Cargill as a face. There is nothing that makes us feel sorry for her, feel sympathy for her. I mean, she's built like a Greek goddess. You know, I mean, everybody, you know, you look at her Instagram photos, you see how strong she is. Like, how do you feel sorry for her? And so when she turns on Tiffany Stratton, it was like, finally. And so, you know, the whole Tiffany Stratton being slightly injured. Hey, first of all, the injury comes from Jade Cargill. So I'm perfectly fine with that. Secondly, Jade Cargill may have looked, well, there's no may have to it, was the most impressive we've seen her in her entire WWE tenure. I mean, she didn't just pin Tiffany Stratton. She dog walked Tiffany Stratton. I mean, like I was watching and I was like, wait, she just power bombed her multiple times. She just did all these power moves like back to back to back. And it was like, dominant Jade is here. Like, this is what we need. We have not had, number one, a dominant heel in WWE in a long time. I mean, you probably have to go back to Nia Jax maybe last year when she went on that run she was on. But other than that, we haven't had it. And Nia Jax obviously is imposing because she's obviously taller and larger. But you look at a Jade Cargill, man, Jade Cargill is wildly intimidating. And she's been talking like this for years. I mean, you go back to her AEW days. I mean, you know, she was just talking about how she's that bee and all of these other things. And now she gets to physically live up to what she's been saying on the socials the whole time. So I love how this happened. You know, if there was anybody who was going to end this 302-day reign of Tiffany Stratton, it had to be done that way. Overpowering, overbearing, just almost a squash kind of situation. So shout out to Jade Cargill, the new WWE Women's Champion.
It kind of felt Brock Lesnar-esque in the same way when I think it was when Brock Lesnar returned, went against John Cena and just took him out. And in a funny way, I haven't really looked on the socials, I haven't really looked on X or anything like that, but I'm sure there must have been some kind of comments about Jay getting a lick back when it came to, you know, that whole thing with Tiffany Stratton saying the wrong thing and all of that kind of stuff as well. And I guess that part of it felt nice for many people within the wrestling community, or at least the Black wrestling community in many ways. I think the way it was done was definitely in the best way it could have been. You know, we talked about this the other week about, you know, the SmackDown Women's division kind of, you know, not having a lot of women available. You know, we talked about Julia coming against Tiffany Stratton, kind of making it feel as though, you know, or kind of magnifying the whole thing of the SmackDown Women's division being a little bit shallow. Mm-hmm. But then comes the question, now that Jade is the new champion, who will be her first challenger, or not even just the first, but her challengers over the next few months or however long she holds this title? Who is there?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm trying to think through the current SmackDown women's roster, and I'm having a hard time coming up with people. You know, so I imagine there might be a rematch for Tiffany Stratton, though the way she got beat down, I think she's going to probably need time to heal.
Yeah.
So I think there are a couple of options for them. I mean, obviously, this is the perfect time to bring in some of the women from NXT. NXT is very, very heavy on the women's side in terms of just a ton of talent who's waiting to make the come up. So, I mean, I think you've got a lot of talent potentially there. You may need to bring a couple of people over from Raw to be able to have a match with Jade, because right now, I think, you know, you look at Jade and you look at Stephanie Vacour. I mean, two fairly dominant champions in very different ways. So I think you have some real opportunities on the SmackDown side. I mean, you know, if you put a Chelsea Green in there, for instance, you know, you'd be feeding her right now to Jade Cargill. Pretty much anybody who gets in that ring right now is going to be fed to Jade Cargill. And it should be that way. Now, I've seen, you know, talk about what this Jade title reign should look like. And I'll shout out, she'll appreciate this. I'll shout out Lovely Laveau on Twitter or on X, who just is a great voice for these kinds of moments. And she just said, you know, that this should be the kind of reign that Jade has. It should be Brock Lesnar-esque, Goldberg-esque. I mean, where you just come in, I'll even call it Roman Reigns-esque in terms of, you know, show up, smash, and leave. I mean, like, it should be like that. There's no need in trying to, you know, put people against her that, you know, gets a small shot. No, let them get beat down, you know, so that now whoever is being built to have to take on a monster champion, because that's who Jade Cargill is.
And I think in a way, you know, it's a bit of a genius move by the WWE in the respect of all the aspects that we're talking about. You know, Tiffany had held a title for a very long time. And I don't think it was just the length of time, but more so now the position that we're in with the women's division on SmackDown, at least, where there just wasn't anyone left. You know, she was facing Jade and Nia Jax kind of came back, and it was them two for months and months. And I think it's a nice way for them to build someone in this space of time where Jade can dominate, and whoever comes alongside her, or whoever comes up against her, whoever they bring up from NXT, you know, they will be fed, and that's not a bad thing at all. If a JC Jane comes around, for example, if a Lash Legend comes around, I mean, that might be a little bit different, to be fair. It might.
Yeah, we shouldn't feed her. That should be a competitive match.
Maybe not. She was just fed to the Evolve Women's Champion.
Exactly. That's a whole nother. Oh my god. Oh god.
Actually, we probably will at some point.
We probably need to talk about that.
We probably need to. But at the same time, you know, while people are being fed and while Jade's having this dominant run, kind of to the side, we can build up someone and see matches between other know, to build someone up, and then eventually take Jade's title, or at least kind of give her a very decent very decent match. But my thinking is, and I saw this, I heard this, I believe it was Santi on his podcast, asking the same question: who's next for Jade? The name that popped up, and I'm sure we've run it through our heads, is Bianca Belair. It might be too early for that, but one thing that was said on there as well was that, you know, Survivor Series is around the corner. Does Jade have a big match, or who's Jade's big match, if she has one, at Survivor Series? Could it still be Bianca Belair, or do we need to leave that until a WrestleMania?
Yeah, Jade versus Bianca is absolutely WrestleMania. Absolutely. And it's interesting because we've avoided Jade versus Bianca for the last 2 years. You know, a couple of years ago when Jade first popped on officially, we had the big three, you know, and then last year we had, or earlier this year, we had Jade versus Naomi. Now we're in the space where we're ready for Jade versus Bianca, and it be for the women's championship. So in my mind, this reign at the very least goes through WrestleMania. And I say the very least because there's an argument that could be made that this version of Jade beats Bianca Belair, considering we haven't seen Bianca wrestle since this past WrestleMania. So she's not had a single match since that triple threat. So, you know, you could argue Bianca comes back, wins the Royal Rumble, or repeats as the Elimination Chamber winner, chooses Jade Cargill, and here we go with that, this long-awaited match. But yeah, no, that's not going to happen at Survivor Series. I think, you know, you could, there's an argument that could be made depending upon, we still don't have a clue what the women's War Games match is going to be. And so you could arguably put her in there in that particular moment. I saw somebody, I don't remember who this was, so I can't quite give them credit, but I saw someone mention the possibility of Jade versus Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania, which would be fire. Like if we want to hold off on Jade versus Bianca, like if Bianca isn't medically cleared or what have you, Jade versus Rhea is a game changer. It's a game changer. And I'd be intrigued to see how that ultimately plays out. I think it would be a huge test for Jade, but Jade operating at a championship level between now and WrestleMania, I think would get her ready if we were going to see a Jade versus Rhea situation.
And WrestleMania would be what, about 5 months away? Is that right? Yeah, about 5.
Yeah, 5 months away.
5 months away. A 5-month reign. It's definitely doable. As you said, you know, if people are fed to her, she has a few feuds in between, establishes herself as a champion while we build up others and set up other things. And to be fair, with that Rhea idea, it would also be nice to mix up things with the women's division in SmackDown, move a few ladies from Raw. Rhea would be a very good one, a very strong one, of course. I don't think the Raw women's division then loses out either. As big and as big as a star as Rhea is, probably the biggest name, female name in WWE right now, and has been. I think it would help that division in a massive way, and to eventually get those two clashing would be very interesting indeed. What the other thing that I saw that was interesting is that 4 of the current WWE champions are Jade Cargill, Ricky Starks, CM Punk, Cody Rhodes. You know, it's all former AEWs. It's all people that, you know, ended up leaving out of frustration with the company, feeling as though they weren't pushed enough or didn't get chances or weren't listened to, maybe, all that kind of stuff, and kind of in the Cody Rhodes camp, as we call it, with Jade, Ricky Starks all being very close friends to Cody, and of course CM Punk was a guy who was definitely, you know, behind Ricky Saints when he was in AEW as well. When Collision started, he was like the main heel, all that kind of stuff. So it was actually nice to see a picture of the 4 of them holding championships. Is that the kind of thing that we have been waiting for? Is it long awaited? Is it something that we can kind of make something out of, apart from it just being a former AEW type of thing?
You could. I think it's one of those, you know, it kind of reminds me to a degree, I can't believe I'm going to mention this, but it kind of reminds me of the Click in terms of, you know, you've got this group of wrestlers who on camera don't seem to go together. You know, I mean, at the time of the Click, you know, you had Razor and Kevin Nash, who were somewhat good guys, if I remember correctly. Or maybe they were bad guys, and you had Sean, who was the world champion, as a good guy, and so they were kind of all over the place. I think you have a very similar situation here, where with Jade obviously being the bad girl, Cody and Punk as very popular world champions. You've got Ricky Saints as the NXT champion, who's really establishing themselves. So it's kind of one of those click rules everything around me kind of things, which I think is a dope space to be in. Obviously the picture had a small degree of petty connected to it, in the direction of AEW. But I think what's powerful about this picture is that it is not a mere look at, hey, let's make former AEW guys champions.
Right.
All four of them have earned their keep. And then there's talk more about your Blake Monroe, your Ethan Page, who also are holding championship gold in NXT, and now AAA for Ethan Page. They've all earned these spots. They haven't gotten these spots because they're former AEW competitors. They've earned their spots. So, should we see an on-camera thing with the four of them? Not yet. I think, Jade is obviously kind of establishing herself as the heel, but I think that picture does speak volumes in terms of where the WWE is placing Jade, and where the WWE is placing Ricky Starks, because obviously Cody and Punk, I mean, they are literally running the show in WWE.
Right.
And so the automatic rub or influence that happens for a Jade, for Ricky Saints, because of two of the biggest stars in the company who happen to be world champions, that's a win. That's a big win for Jade and Ricky Starks. And so, I look at it like that. I look at it like the Four Horsewomen, where they're able to cheer each other on from wherever they are and watch them dominate across three brands.
And we've also, we've always seen, Ricky Saints and Jade congratulate each other and everything, on X and all of those things. They don't hide it. They really don't need to, of course, but it's something that's very apparent as well. So I'm sure that they will both be, very happy for each other and all that kind of stuff. And I, like you said, I don't think it needs to be a kick in the teeth or, to AEW. I don't think it needs to be that at all. But I think it definitely, as you said, with Saints and with Cargill, it does feel as though it's kind of like, well, this could have and should have happened during their time in AEW, for sure. I think it was a missed opportunity on with both of them. But at the same time, you can't then walk into WWE and just become something straight away. It shows that there is a process. There has to be, some trust built, time taken, adjustments made. As we saw more than anything with Jade Cargill, she was sent back to the PC for a few months before coming to the main roster and all that kind of stuff, and had to work her way to the position that she's in now. So I think what it does is show what the WWE were prepared to do from the start, but took their time to make sure they got it right. And maybe you could argue that's what AEW may have been trying to do or wanted to do, because they didn't just make it happen straight away. But it still felt as though it took too long. Yeah. So, but we'll never know. We'll never know.
We'll never know.
It is what it is. Speaking of Jade and her heel turn, she wasn't the only female that seemed to have made some kind of turn over the last few weeks. We saw at Halloween Havoc, NXT's Halloween Havoc, KELANI Jordan defending her TNA Knockouts Championship against the former Knockouts champion, probably the greatest of the Knockouts champions of all time, in Jordan Grace. And the way it concluded was KELANI first had a indecisive moment of maybe using the belt to hit Jordan with. All while a whole load of chaos was going on with Ricky Saints and Trick Williams kind of having a brawl during the match and distracting referee. But eventually, Kelani Jordan thought, why not? Use the belt and hit Jordan Grace with it to then pick up the win. We've seen this whole thing kind of brewing probably even before Kelani Jordan won the TNA Knockouts Championship. Is this the right move? Has it been done well? Where does it go from here with Kelani as a heel?
I think it works. To your point, I think they've been hinting at this for a little while now, and they weren't sure of when to pull the trigger. I think, you know, her going over to TNA and winning the world championship in the way that she did, you know, she gets to be honorable. That certainly wasn't the moment in time to do that, just because everybody was already warring in terms of TNA versus NXT. So now you kind of make the conflict. Do we not like her because she's NXT, but she's really nice? Like, you know, it's figuring that out. I think this move against Jordan Grace is great for a few reasons. Number one, it makes it far more believable to see her beating Jordan Grace, because Jordan Grace is clearly more physically dominant. Right. So now she takes this shortcut to do it. It actually continues on the Trick Williams vibe, from him losing the world title to now another arrogant NXT star as your world champion over in TNA. I think that's great. I also think it's very interesting, all of the ways we are finding not to crown Jordan Grace a champion. I think that's very, very interesting. You know, from Jordan Grace not being able to win the NXT championship because of Blake Monroe back at Evolution, you know, to now this moment, she can't win the TNA world championship. And so you've got multiple stories, I think, that are happening. This crisis of confidence for Jordan Grace. Meanwhile, Kelani Jordan gets to step over to TNA and be the heel champ that now you can have all kinds of people chasing, both NXT and TNA. I also find it interesting since, you know, in our last little bit, we talked about kind of things that are happening on camera versus off camera, even though there was a camera present. I think it's very interesting to watch a Kelani Jordan heel turn mixed with a Carmelo Hayes face turn all at the same time. That's incredibly interesting to me. And I don't know who thought of that in terms of timing, but it's a wee bit brilliant to me. You know, so yeah, I think it's a good thing. Another wrinkle in the character of Kelani Jordan. And I'm intrigued to see where she goes from there, what this does for the Knockouts division over in TNA, who steps up to try to challenge her. Does she end up recruiting some people to help her out? That would stand to make sense. It would feel like she'd need some backup somewhere. Who that backup would be, I don't know quite yet. But yeah, I think it opens up the door for a lot of opportunities for Kelani Jordan in this title reign.
I think as well, and on top of her being another NXT contracted star, winning a TNA championship, being a heel, holding that TNA championship, the difference here with her and Trick is nobody like Trick at all. I feel as though Kelani's being hated because she chose TNA. So while I still see her as a heel on TNA, it won't be at the you know, detriment of a TNA heels, whereas Trick was a little bit more, while he still had, you know, Top Dollar and, you know, a couple of us kind of on his side. Yeah, there was still hate from other heels on TNA simply because he was from NXT. I think the dynamic is just a little different here. But I think that, you know, I think it's definitely, we're going to see how Kelani handles this. Yeah. My only worry, and I think it's only because of recent events, my only worry is after the recent events are Wesley being released and that being kind of, you know, not the reason why, but it had some level of it to do with it. When he became a heel, it kind of just didn't really work for him. And we are where we are now, and it kind of feels as though it was part of the reason. With what I've seen from Kelani so far, I'm not sure whether the heel thing works for her. I could be completely wrong. I want to be proven wrong. But it's going to be interesting to see how she handles it and what she does with it. It would be very interesting to see what type of backup, or if any, that she gets. It could be from TNA. It could even still be from NXT. So that's going to be interesting. But I think this with her and Jordynne Grace is a brilliant way to establish her as a TNA Knockouts champion. This woman has basically now won everything she can apart from a women's tag team championship, which is crazy. And of course the NXT women's championship. But you know, it's interesting just to see how much push that the WWE are giving this woman so early on, so straight away. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with her. On a slightly sadder note, we've seen Sol Ruka having to give up her championships, the women's speed and the women's NXT North American championship. Of course, she didn't actually defend it. Zarya did against Blake Monroe, lost the match. And we now know she's given up the speed championship. I believe she's clearly going to be away from action for a bit of time. Does she come back and have an issue with Zarya, or does she come back and they're still friends? It's what happens with this dynamic, because we already kind of saw ripples from early on. We didn't quite get any kind of betrayal or whatever else. Does that need to happen now when she returns, or?
It's interesting. WWE over time, if an injury or something happens, they will punt on a storyline. And, when a person comes back, it'll just all be brand new. I think a lot of that will depend on when she comes back and what Zarya is doing at the time. So, there's a couple of ways this could go. It could be Zarya, as she said, hey, I'm going to enter the speed tournament. And I'm going to do it for you, and I'm going to try to win these championships for you. And it could be where she wins the speed championship. Soul comes back and goes, hey, you're holding my championship, and Zarya becomes possessive. Like, no, I've always wanted this. You're not going to take it from me. And it starts there. We could end up in a scenario where Soul comes back. And when Soul comes back, she's just had time to think. And it's like, Zarya, you didn't really help me all that time. Like, you really stood in my way when I could have done, I could have held 3 championships, but you weren't a good tag team partner. I might not have gotten injured if I had a better tag team partner.
True.
You know what I mean?
True.
And so you've cost me months. You've cost me 2 championships. No, I can't be down with you anymore. Right. So I think there are a lot of ways it could work. My concern is I don't know why they took so long to pull the trigger on this one. It's kind of like the Trick Mello thing, right? Like, we saw it coming from a mile away, and it was like you waited till the absolute last minute, and when it happened, it was like, oh, there had to be a more creative way to do that. So now we've gone through a lot of things. This could have happened at Evolution. It could have happened when they fought for the tag team titles. It could have happened when when Zarya lost the opportunity to be part of something. Like, there's a lot of places this could have happened while we were interested in it. I'm concerned that they'll wait too late. And at this point, it almost feels like it has to happen the second Sol Ruka comes back.
Right.
Because if it doesn't, like, what are we doing? Unless unless they pull the old bait and switch, they have Soul doing something somewhere else, and then it happens. Now, again, the real question is, who executes the turn? I think we all thought it was going to be Zarya, and to a degree, it makes sense that it would be Zarya, because we would ultimately see the angry Zarya being held back potentially by Soul. We can feel sorrier for Soul because she is, you know, a smaller competitor. But the flip side is, do you bring Soul in as the one who does the heel turn? I don't know if they can afford for that or not, since Soul is just so fun-loving and things of that nature. I will say that NXT is probably the place they can try it, because there isn't as much merch on the line. There isn't as much money on the line as opposed to trying to do that when she's on the main roster. So there's some possibilities, but I think as soon as Soul comes back, like, this has to happen.
Yeah. And I think they've put themselves in a good position to do either or. Especially with, you know, with Zarya losing the match. You know, Soul never actually lost, and as much as it was kind of like, you know, it was going to be down to her injury and whatever else, it's still, well, you kind of forced yourself to step in for me and whatever. And, you know, Soul looked clearly upset about, you know, when Zarya lost. So that could easily turn then into anger when she returns and she attacks Zarya. As you said, it does make more sense, or it's an easier write to write in, you know, Zarya being the one that turns, kind of like, you know, I tried to help you, or, you know, you were away for so long and I came here and I did my thing and whatever else. And as you said, just the size difference as well is enough to make that make sense. It's going to be interesting. And as you said, I think there were missed opportunities. They were definitely going to do it down the line. But I think, you know, the injuries come unexpectedly. You never know what's going to happen. It messes up things as well. But there is still something that can be done here. And I think it will make an interesting return for Soul to see whether they do it. And I don't think they cannot do it.
Right.
It's either, if they don't do it, it's either a thing where Soul comes back and, you know, there's no correlation with Zarya whatsoever. But again, I don't think that will work. It will just feel weird and pointless. And if she comes back and they're still friends, again, it would feel like, what was the point? So there has to be something that happens.
Yeah. I mean, like, when I say there are so many ways they could do this, I mean, this could, the play on this could be Soul comes back and she'll be like, I was gone for 4 months and 5 months and you didn't even call me.
Yeah.
Visit me.
That whole thing as well.
You know, that whole thing. You know, and I think, and here's how they could play it. They could still play it with Soul mentioning all of that, with Zarya still being the heel, you know, where Zarya is, where Soul is just like, you know, I thought we were friends, you know, I thought we were this, that, and the other. And Zarya was like, you know, I'm so sorry. Like, you know, I tried to call and, you know, all these kinds of things. And Soul turns her back, and then Zarya just destroys Soul. But it has to be circa Batista destroying Rey Mysterio. You know, like, it has to be with that level of just dominance and anger and, you know, so that you really dislike Zarya and really feel for Soul. So they got a lot of ways they can do this, a lot of ways. And I hope that they execute one of them.
And I think for me, one of them that sticks in my mind is Zarya could win the North American Championship while Soul's out, and probably even, like, obviously turn heel, as in be dominant, you know what I mean, be angry, all of that during the time Soul's away. When when Soul comes back, she'll then have a conflict of, you know, of emotions, and we kind of see Zarya maybe, you know, get a little worried or whatever it is, but then the anger just comes out during their discussion, whatever it is, and then we get that. So I think that's another. I think that would be a nice way for it to happen. But either way, it has to happen on Soul's return, whenever that is, however that is, it has to happen. I don't think you can keep it going any longer than it needs to. For sure. Definitely that. Keeping with NXT, of course, we know as well that Trick Williams will have another chance against Ricky Saints for the NXT Championship, but this time it's going to be a last man standing match. It's in 2 weeks, so it's not going to be tonight. I believe it's going to be next week on NXT. Is this Trick Williams' farewell?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like we don't have to play around with this anymore. I mean, it's clear. Here's the thing. He's super over. He is, the people are still singing his song while hating him. Right? Like that's the thing. I do think that there are multiple things happening at the same time. Trick Williams is getting his send-off while helping to establish Ricky Saints as a credible NXT champion.
Perfect.
So, you know, they did it at Halloween Havoc. They're going to do it again in the last man standing match. The chaos that we've seen last week was brilliant.
Madness.
Oh, gosh, it was just great. So this is what's needed, and you bring Trick into, you know, Raw or SmackDown, and you let him cook. But yeah, we don't need to extend this anymore. I mean, you bring him up, you bring Oba up, like it's time. It's time. You know, the pipeline that they have there at NXT, there's so much talent. And then of course you've got talent from Evolve showing up. So they're not short on talent. And I know the men's division has been a little lacking, but again, you've got people that you can bring up from Evolve to NXT. We're still seeing the rise of a Jasper Troy. We've not seen Shiloh Hill show up yet. You know, so there's some real opportunities, I think, on the men's side where you can let Trick matriculate, dare I say, up to SmackDown or Raw. Let Oba come on through, and let's make some room for this new talent. I mean, you're raising up Tavion Heights. You're raising up Miles Bourne. I mean, we've got talent, male talent, that's coming up the ranks. We still don't know whatever happened to the Don. He just disappeared.
Oh, yeah, true.
You know, so I don't know if you bring him back. I mean, there's a plethora of talent out there. Lexus King, you know, all of these guys that I think you can do some things with that will allow Trick to carefully head up to Raw or SmackDown.
And you know, it's like we said many weeks ago when Ricky Saints became the NXT champion, that it makes it easier now to bring up talent or to have, you know, different people against him, because Oba was just too dominant. You know, got to a point where he was just too dominant, and any challenger didn't feel as though, you know, they had any real chance. As great as the matches were, as many, you know, near falls that we had in every single match, and people had their chance and whatnot, you just still felt as though surely this can't happen. And even when it happened with Ricky Saints, we were all shocked.
All of us.
Thinking, wait, what?
Right.
I think the only person that we felt had any type of chance or kind of it made sense that they could or they would beat Oba was Javon Evans.
Agreed.
And even with him, you've still got him, but he's now doing tag team stuff. We'll talk about that in a second as well.
Right.
But I think as well with Trick, you know, it is time for him to maybe move up and move on. He's done everything he could possibly do in NXT. He's doing the right thing in terms of putting Saints over and establishing him as the NXT champion. And, you know, we saw on Raw just last night, the seemingly, you know, we're seeing the making of maybe, you know, Logan Paul being added to the division. You know, we've got Survivor Series coming up, which obviously means War Games. It's not obvious what this War Games match is going to be just yet. Things have changed over time and whatnot. But, you know, there is talk of the Vision having a match, a War Games match specifically. And they then need to add a few people. We talked about this the last time we were on, about Trick being an addition. Do you think that is a possibility that maybe Trick could be added to this group if the Vision end up in a War Games match?
I think it could. The thing that the group is lacking right now, though, is an experienced figure.
Right.
So prior to this teasing of Logan Paul, I still think Trick Williams makes more sense than Logan Paul.
Yeah.
By far. And I don't know if they'll just reveal that Logan Paul was a hired hand versus actually being a part of the vision. I'd prefer that he's a hired hand. If that's the case, bring us Trick and then give us an experienced member and we're off to the races. I think Trick Williams with Logan Paul in there, I don't think that hits the same, though it is like a bunch of young guns. But, a space like this, you're trying to figure out who is the established leader. Is it indeed Paul Heyman, which would be wild? Is it Braun Breaker? I even sense the idea that with Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed both thinking they should get world title shots, I mean, that's not going to fly. So there needs to be an experienced in-ring competitor in there, veteran-like. I don't think that's Logan Paul. I'm not fully sure who that should be, but I think with Logan Paul there, it may put Trick on the outs. I still think Trick is a much better fit, though, for the vision.
I like the idea of Trick being added, even with a Logan Paul, even with Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, putting themselves in main event positions. Both kind of having enough to compete for a world championship. Because both Logan Paul and a Trick Williams are could easily put themselves in a very similar position. Whether it's warranted or not, with Logan Paul, everyone will still, do the whole thing of, he's just come in and he's a part-timer and whatever. But he makes sure, as he did on Raw, to put himself in that position. That in itself is enough. And it works well, and he does it on TV. Whether it's credible or not, it doesn't matter. He's telling everyone that's where it should be. Trick could easily come with that same energy and have even more credibility with it.
For sure.
I think that would be a very interesting group of young guys. And I can't remember the last time I've seen a faction that was like that. I think the last time I saw anything like that, we're going back to like WCW days. I can't remember what the group was called, but you had like sort of Mark Jindrak and those guys, like that group there.
Like
it
the New Blood or something like that.
Yeah. It kind of didn't work out, but you understood the premise of the group and what they were trying to do. So I think that would actually would be a very interesting dynamic. The other interesting part of it, and we've seen cogs turning with this one as well, in terms of this, if Division have a War Games match and need to add more members, and it probably would be just a one-night thing, would be a Brock Lesnar. I think that would then add even more to a team like that. I don't think Brock Lesnar then turns up with Division every single week. He's not a faction. At all. He's
not at all.
Very much a standalone. But I think those guys, those four with a Brock Lesnar,
that'd be a problem.
Would make very, very interesting match indeed. I think there's still a space for Trick Williams to be in that group. Of course, there's still the talk of Austin Theory making an appearance and being part of the group. But then, as you said, even with a Logan Paul, that might be a one-off because of the way he is, kind of as we call it, a part-timer. You're not going to see him every single week with the group.
No.
But yeah, so they maybe do need one more person who's established as, we'll see them every week. And Trick or Theory fits that bill very well. But I'd rather see Trick than anyone else.
Oh, for sure.
And I hope that discussion is being had in the meeting rooms in WWE. I can't see how it isn't. It would be insane if that's not been talked about at all. It would be very insane indeed. Speaking of people trying to raise the stakes and raise their profile, we know, we've seen Javon Evans and Leon Slater actually team together at Halloween Havoc, won their match, and of course then we saw Dark State recapture the NXT championships, NXT Tag Team Championships once again. And now the two youngest in charge are now setting their sights on Dark State. They've had their problems with them over the past few weeks as well. Is this... I was going to ask the question, is this the right move? It's a silly question to ask. It is the right move. When does it happen? When do we pull it off? We're gonna see Javon Evans versus Saquon Sugars, I believe tonight on NXT. Yeah, is this a one and done? These two, Javon and Leon Slater have to win these tag team championships in the next few weeks, maybe.
I think this happens at Deadline.
Okay.
I think, it makes a lot of sense because, again, you catch lightning in a bottle with these two. It's an exciting tag team. It's highlight reels for days. Put the straps on these guys, let them run with it. And you create some moments with that. But I think that happens at Deadline. I think that's just still, 3-4 weeks away. That's enough time to build a story. We don't have to rush it. It gets us through Thanksgiving break as well. So yeah, I think we can absolutely pull this off at Deadline. And it'll be a thing because, again, the second we saw those two together, we were just like, oh, we need more of this immediately, So them as tag team champions definitely makes sense. And then we get yet another amazing moment. Leon Slater as the X Division champion and NXT tag team champion. Unheard of. More history. So I'm here for it.
And with Dark State recapturing the championships as well. The match that they had with the Broken Hardys.
Yes.
As they were at Halloween Havoc. Amazing match. Another sign of Dark State's potential, even where they are now currently. The faction for me is working as it needs to, as it should. I don't feel anything's being rushed. I don't think anything's taking too long. I think it's perfect. What else then does this group need to do in order to establish them further? Do they win more championships and hold multiple championships within the group? Or is that something that, them winning championships is something that happens along the line over time?
I think they could use some additional championships, but I think their real win is in wreaking pure havoc. So I think they need to be doing more of that than winning championships per se. I think their championship needs to just be how they can absolutely disorient all things NXT. I think that needs to be the focus for them. But because I love the four of them, they have a dynamic that's incredible, and they've already been put at the top of the card, and they've beaten people at the top of the card. So I think that's one of the reasons why the tag team championships may not work as well, because most of the tag team competitors aren't considered in the same ilk as the main eventers. Now that you've taken away Axiom and Frazier, you don't really have that all-star kind of team that ends up in the main event. I mean, the Hardys really were the last version of that. So right now, I mean, you've got Hank and Tank, you got OTM, you've got a number of different spots, which are good-looking tag teams, but they don't feel main event level. Javon Evans and Leon Slater feel main event level because they are. They've main evented multiple times.
Of course.
So for the sake of the tag team championships, you likely need Slater and Evans as tag team champions. And then I think really for Dark State to still be viable in that main event space, they need to be wreaking havoc around the singles championships.
Yeah, I believe so as well. And the thing is, you mentioned OTM, who have recently returned. They've come in, of course, again, being dominant, being heels. So it wouldn't make sense for them to be immediate challengers to Dark State because they're very similar in that respect as heels, and wreaking havoc, that kind of dynamic. It makes a lot more sense if Evans and Slater were champions and then OTM come for them. It's interesting as well that OTM have been on main event I believe it's 2 weeks in a row now. So it's interesting to see what WWE NXT are going to do with them as well in the next coming months, and how their dynamic is the way they use them is going to take place in NXT. But I think it is also, we've seen it so many times with other NXT stars who have been on main event. It doesn't mean they're going to be on the main roster within the following month or the following weeks. It's just okay, these guys are here. Let's see how they handle a bigger crowd. Let's see how they handle a different opponent. And it's almost like it's not so much a test of main roster to me anymore. It's more of a test of main event NXT.
Yeah, true.
Because we saw that with Javon Evans. We've seen Carmelo Hayes back, a year or so, about 2 years ago, and a few others as well who have been in that same position, but then just became main event in NXT and went from there. So OTM are definitely another team to keep your eye on. I'm actually glad they're back. It adds another dynamic to the NXT tag team division, and it's going to make for interesting viewing as well. Dark State in the singles in around the singles championships, I'm scared. It's going to be it will be so interesting to see them, attack a Ricky Saints, for example, and see what advocate they can wreak on him, and who then steps up to be that singles competitor. Right. I mean, I've got, for me, there are only two options. Okay. It's Shaquan Sugars or Dion Lennox. It has to be one of those two. I don't think it could be the other two. Not for now, at least, anyway. So that's going to be very, very interesting. Speaking of tag teams and people coming together to form a tag team that just feels like a dream, Mercedes Moné and Athena join forces. It's crazy. I mean, we've seen them do it before. It was a one-off. It was against Tony Storm. But this time, they are now part of this AEW Women's Tag Team Tournament to crown the first ever AEW Women's Tag Team Champions. Are they going all the way?
It seemed, when they were naming the teams, you were trying to think of, okay, who's going to be the odds-on favorite here? As soon as they put those two together, throw the whole tournament away. What do we? Just end. To me, if Mercedes and Athena, who have been the two most winning women in the AEW Ring of Honor universe, period.
Right.
How do they lose? Like this is it's silly to even try to make us think that they're going to lose. Like that's particularly when one of them, particularly with both of them as champions, one of them is the longest reigning champion in the history of Ring of Honor or AEW. The other one has 12 belts.
Right.
And is vying for a 13th one.
Right.
Like, so how? The only way I see them not winning the tag titles is if Mercedes gets injured as a part of Blood and Guts. If that happens, then okay. But other than that, I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing if these two women are not the tag team champions? Now, here's the other part. The other part is if they become the tag team champions, I don't see anybody beating them. So this, again, is the great catch-22 of AEW. Right. If we're honest, why are they in this tournament?
That's true. That's a very good question.
That's the real question. You have an established world champion. You have a woman who has 12 belts. Why are they in a tag team title tournament? I thought this was for, those who didn't really have championship opportunities to get exposure, to be on a larger platform. This is a move that doesn't make any sense because there's no way you win with this. If they lose, we're going to sit back and go, how do they lose? Since they are not losing in singles competition. If they win, who's going to beat them? So, this is, again, an AEW problem. I mean, on the men's side, your Ring of Honor world champion is an AEW tag team champion. They had the other week, your unified champion in Kazuchika Okada and the now IWGP world champion in a tag team title match. Why? Like these are... Make it make sense, AEW. I would have preferred that you would have given that slot to two other women who, are deserving. And it's not a knock to Mercedes and Athena. This is the equivalent of having Barack Obama apply for an entry-level job at McDonald's. Does the word overqualified mean anything to you? Right? Like, that's what we have here. These two women are overqualified to be the AEW Women's Tag Team Champions. You wouldn't do this anywhere. You wouldn't put Cody and CM Punk in a World Tag Team title tournament. Like, you wouldn't do that. So I don't understand this move. I don't understand it at all. Nobody really wins with this. They just don't. You only make people upset if Athena and Mercedes win, and you make them upset if Athena and Mercedes lose.
Could there not be a possibility, though, that these two are together just to establish whoever then actually does beat them in the final? So they get to the final, they face another group. There's a possibility of it being okay. I'm looking at the brackets at the minute. They're facing Willow and Harley in their first match. They're not losing to them. It's not going to happen. No. When they win that, it's the Sisters of Sin who they face in the next round. I don't think the Sisters of Sin are winning that, which is a shame. That's probably the only established team of women. Right. In this whole tournament. On the other end of the brackets, you've got Windsor and Rio facing Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa. Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa surely have to win that one. Sure. Then you've got Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir together, which is scary. That is scary. Against TJ. So again, of those four other teams, I'm sure it's Tony and Mina that will get to the final. Right. More than likely, we're going to see Mercedes Moné and Athena against Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa. Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa would make sense. But then at the same time, it wouldn't make any sense for them to beat Mercedes and Athena. I don't see why that has to happen. As you said, with them being as dominant as they are. It's a tough one, but as you said, I don't understand why they're in the tournament. It's exciting that we're going to see them together, and because of how dominant they've been and who they are, and all of that. But it's like, and you've still got Mercedes Moné coming for the AEW Women's Championship too.
14 belts, Moné.
It's crazy to me.
So here's another reason why this is a problem. You were mentioning perhaps they're going to be used to help establish whoever will win the championships. If that's the case, why isn't Chris Statlander in this tournament? True. So we don't have Chris Statlander in this tournament. Secondly, if I'm booking this, the finals should actually be Willow and Harley Cameron against Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir. That should be your finals.
That would make sense.
That would make a lot of sense. Why are we going to rob Willow again at the hands of Mercedes Moné? We've done that once, you know. Harley Cameron, I think, you know, there's an argument that could have been made that Harley Cameron should have won the world title when they were down in Australia and she was fighting, or no, when she was fighting Mercedes for the TBS title. There's the argument that should have happened then because she was catching fire, you know. Those two deserve to, at the very least, be in the finals for this tournament. This team of Marina Shafir and Megan Bayne, man, this is like the skyscrapers of old, right? Like these are two very dominant women who should be potentially tag team champions. And now you let people chase. It's much like what we're seeing with Jade as the WWE Women's Champion. When you have an overwhelming mountain to climb, now you pique the interest of the people because we live for a David and Goliath kind of matchup. But this scenario of potentially having two current women's champions and two previous women's champions all in the main event sounds good on paper, but is horrible for what you're trying to accomplish with these tag teams. So I think, again, this should have been Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir against Willow Nightingale and Harley Cameron, and we would have had some fun tag team situations there. You would have established two great women. I mean, think about it. Marina hadn't really wrestled ever since hanging out with the Death Riders. Now you give her purpose. You give Megan Bayne, you've been painting as this really, really tough competitor. You let them wear gold, you know, but this, what they have right now, it's too predictable. It just, I mean, why does Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa need to be in this tournament? And considering that Toni Storm just recently had gone through teaming up with Alex Windsor, why are they separate now? There are too many holes to poke in this, and that's the problem for me.
And that's the thing, you know. And as much as we can predict who we think should get to the final, even if there's an upset, it's like, again, if a team beats Tony and Mina, or a team beats Athena and Mercedes, why would those ladies in the tournament in the first place? Because it wouldn't establish anyone. Winning in the semi-final wouldn't really do much for anyone. I don't think it would. It's not like when Private Party beat the Bucks. It's not the same thing, because the Bucks were overly established as the greatest tag team, or arguably the greatest tag team in the world at the time, possibly still, you know, probably in the conversation of all time. And then Private Party beat them in the first round. That makes sense. It helps. Whereas if either of these teams lose at any part of this, it's not going to feel the same. So it's a tough one. Again, it's, you know, you're thinking that an additional bout again in AEW would help to create more opportunities, but it's not, because it just feels as though it's creating more titles for the bigger stars that are already big stars. Like, what are we doing? I hope at some point, you know, you'd like to think that, you know, whoever ends up winning, and if they are the big stars, it then will help to establish whoever beats them, as we've seen in the past. But it doesn't really quite work that way in AEW, or hasn't really quite worked that way in AEW when you look at the history. You know, even when Chris Statlander beat Jade Cargill, yes, it was a great thing for Chris Statlander, and yes, it raised her profile a little bit, but that kind of died down quite quickly. TBS title kind of just didn't. Again, people just stopped caring about it quite quickly. We've seen it with the ROH men's, the amount of men that have won that, and the names and all the rest of it. But again, then still misused in terms of, you know, how they tried to establish it, or who was then opponents, and how that's then gone on. It's just like, you just lose faith in what you think or expect or want these titles to do and mean. So as much as it's exciting to see these two ladies come together, it's like, okay, but what is it actually going to do for anyone? And that's the hard part. But I do want to see them together. I've already liked the dynamic that they have with Athena coming to Mercedes' aid. But even with those two, I'm hoping and expecting someone to turn on someone, and Athena take a title from Mercedes.
Yeah.
I don't even care to see Mercedes take ROH Women's Champion. No thanks. I don't want to see that at all. But if they have any kind of feud coming out of this, Athena has to be the one to be put over in this scenario for sure. But it's going to be interesting to see how this works out. We don't know. We're playing out the possible scenarios and can't really find a great one. But surely there's a level of entertainment that we'll still have with this whole thing, and we'll see how it plays out. Yeah, it is what it is for now, and we'll see. I'm still upset that Aminata didn't get any further than the first round. I love
what was the point of them winning that 4-way match, choosing their opponent and then losing?
No. It's that part. Gosh. It's that part. Yeah. At least have them get to the final. At least.
Yeah.
At least you can't win a 4-way match. Choose your opponent and loot. It doesn't.
Right. Like
it doesn't compute. It does not compute. But here we are. For goodness sake.
Here we are.
Here we are. On a slightly better note, we are seeing the return of Desmond Xavier. No, not to NXT, but to the Indies, of course. The former Wesley, the former NXT North American champion, the second longest reigning NXT North American champion of all time. Of course, released by the WWE a few weeks back. And now making a return to the Indies. I believe he already has 3 shows. His first one's with House of Glory in a week or 2 now. He's got another one in December with Wrestling Revolver, and I'm sure he's already got one for March next year.
Wow,
which is crazy. Already advertised on his profile, all the rest of it, which is crazy. The return of Desmond Xavier to the Indies. Wrestling Revolver was one of the places that he kind of helped establish who he is. House of Glory is a great place, and has been a great place for people who have been released from WWE. We've seen the likes of Indy Hartwell. We've seen the Hardys kind of reestablish themselves as a tag team with House of Glory. I believe Cedric Alexander has been there during his time away from WWE, and so many others. What in your mind? It's very, very early to kind of ask this question, but what in your mind is the best way for Desmond Xavier to approach his time during the Indies? And should he already be thinking about trying to get a contract in another big promotion?
I think a lot of that depends on what he wants to do. I think sometimes in our mind as fans and supporters, we want to see these people in the largest platforms possible.
For sure.
What can be challenging about that is what that schedule entails. So now for him being a part of NXT, he was doing live television once a week, which certainly was a step up from TNA, which would tape once to twice a month. You throw travel in there, house shows and the like, it could be a little bit more. I'm curious to find out what Desmond Xavier wants to accomplish at this stage. Is it going back to TNA and perhaps competing for the world championship instead of the X Division title? Now they've got the international championship over there. I don't necessarily see AEW as a move. I think, man, if he goes to AEW, he gets lost in the sauce. There are 15 Desmond Xaviers over and right now none of them are cooking. You know,
True.
I don't know what happened
True.
to the Martins, you know, Top Flight. I don't know where Leo Rush is. You know, right now, the only one really I don't know where Action Andretti is. Like all of those guys have like vanished off the face of the earth.
Yep.
You know, with no explanation, nothing. So him going over there, I mean, he needs to look at those 4 guys as the template. You know, Ricochet cut through because he's Ricochet. And he went through a bit of a change, but he ended up getting some, you know, some help with him and things like that. But so that wouldn't be a good look. I wouldn't be mad at him taking a trip over to New Japan. I think he could have a lot of fun over there with the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Division. The matches that he could have with Takahashi, with just you know, Hiromu Takahashi and so many others, ELP, and like it would be a problem over there. And you know, and it could set him up well for an opportunity at Wrestle Kingdom 20 in January, right? Like there are opportunities. Could you imagine Desmond Xavier in the Tokyo Dome?
Be amazing. It worked.
It would be
perfectly.
so good. It would be so good. So for me, I say work this indie piece. If you want to reunite with the Rascals for a little bit, do that. But man, go over to Japan. Do it big over there. Let them see you on an international stage. You're already going to have doors open because of the WWE rub. So go over there, take advantage of it, show up at Wrestle Kingdom, you know, let the Japanese fans be good to you and make the most of it.
I think there is also an opportunity. And I think we've kind of seen this happen every now and again. You know, when you see a story that was happening on AEW or WWE kind of not necessarily conclude, but kind of play out on the indies. So, for example, if he rejoins the Rascals, I think they would have to do a thing where it's kind of like, you know, a reuniting and make it obvious that there's a bit of conflict first, or there's an you know, indecisiveness between him and the rest of the boys, and then they come together. I think I don't think they could just appear together and without explanation or whatever else. I think there's a great chance to do something like that. And I feel as though as well, if there is that reuniting, I actually wouldn't want to see on Impact in TNA.
Right. Yeah.
I wouldn't want to see that. I would rather want to see that on the indies. Wherever that happens, I don't think it really matters. But I think that alone, or that moment alone, will help whatever indie show or promotion it happens on. And I think that for me is probably the biggest reason why I want to see it happen on the indies as opposed to TNA. And again, TNA would just be too close to NXT, especially with the partnership and stuff like that.
Sure.
And we haven't seen anything like that work out. We've seen the likes of Dolph Ziggler, who is kind of like, you know, he doesn't want anything to do with the partnership or doesn't want to appear on NXT or whatever else it is. And that's fine. It's not a problem. I don't think it's an animosity either. It's just, okay, I've been there, I've done that. I don't need to do it again. So yeah, again, that's another reason why I wouldn't want to see Desmond Xavier, you know, ending up on TNA anytime soon, at least anyway.
Right.
He's got so many options, and I think that New Japan one is easily the best option if it comes his way. I think it's easily the best option for him to explore and reestablish himself, and in a space where he doesn't have to necessarily contend with, you know, he then doesn't have to contend with his own size. Whereas that's literally been the thing that's held him back in the WWE and not reaching the main roster. And them not having, you know, anything for him or not knowing where to fit him in or what to do with him and stuff like that. AEW kind of does have a space, but at the same time, as you said, it's already been filled with 15 other guys who are now kind of like obsolete. We don't see them do anything. If we if we do see them, it's of nothing of any significance.
Right.
You know, it's hard to imagine or see why an Action Andretti Top Flight have not become ROH Tag Team Champions or ROH Television Champion, you know what I mean, or something like that. So, yeah, I wouldn't want to, you know, I wouldn't want Desmond Xavier to risk that for himself at all. As great as he is, as brilliant as he is, it's not about his talent necessarily, but more so the way things are run, the booking, what we've seen over time. I don't think it's a good thing for him. But yeah, that New Japan would be just Japan in general.
Yes.
Just Japan in general, whether that be Noah, somewhere out, like the options are there. But I think, he definitely needs to make the most of the indies as he did in the past, with now an even more established name for himself. It should be crazy. I'm sure there are many promotions who have probably contacted and want him on their show and all of that, and working out the finer details to make certain things happen. And like I said, he's already got a booking for March next year.
Right. It's amazing.
Some people in WWE and AEW don't even know what they're doing in March next year.
Right. It's
mad. So I wish him all the best. As always, you know, I've always loved this guy, not just for his talent, but for the way he is. He was literally one of the first, I think probably the first, if not the second person wrestler I ever met who was already following my page so many years ago. So that alone, he's got a special place in my heart just for that alone. So I just want to see him do great things, for sure, definitely. On that note, our time is up. Guys, you have been watching WrstlXtra on the Black Wrestling Alliance YouTube channel. You can check us here every single Tuesday, 6 p.m. UK time, whatever it is now. I mean, our time changed. I don't know if anyone else's time's changed.
Ours changed too. It changed at the same time, which is good.
That's all right. For you know, it doesn't happen after. I don't know.
Right.
Stuff. I don't get it.
Right.
But with that said, the beauty of the internet and the days we live in, you can catch us here whenever you want. Obviously, just visit the Black Wrestling Alliance YouTube channel whenever you're ready. Gerard, of course, we say your name, you appear, but if we don't want to speak, we just want to type something in our phones. Where can we find you in the other spaces?
Of course, you can find me at Bonnerfied across all of the social spaces, X, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. You can check out some really cool things going on. Southern Honor, of course, is next week, next Friday. In addition, the big 2-year Ashe anniversary show is coming December 6th. So you'll definitely want to check that out. Some really cool things slated to happen there. Of course, you can check out all things Ashe at AsheWrestling.com. And then, of course, if you want to be a part of what Ashe is doing and you want to participate and contribute at a special level because you believe in it, then go ahead and check out the Patreon page for AsheWrestling.com. All kinds of fun things that you'll be able to connect with there. So do that. Also, you can check out my work with the Nightmare Factory on the Nightmare Family YouTube channel. Some great things are happening there. And while I'm there, shout out to Mike Cunningham, the current Nightmare Factory men's champion, who is now the first Nightmare Factory student to be labeled with the WWE ID. Shout out also to Eli Knight, who I've had a chance to work with previously. He's also been ID'd. And Jaquan McNair, who's appeared at Ashe as well. All three of them are three of the latest to be ID'd for WWE ID. Very, very excited for all of them. And of course, my podcast, you can check it out. It's called Bonnerfied Conversations. You'll probably get to hear me not talk about wrestling on there. So if you're interested in other areas of my world, you can check that out wherever it is that you stream or download podcasts. And of course, at the Bonnerfied Podcast Network.
Let me say this real quick as well. I am super excited to see what Eli Knight does on Evolve.
Yes.
I am super excited. I'm not familiar with the other two, and I'm still excited to see what they do. More intrigued than anything. But Eli Knight, I've been waiting for this guy to make some kind of higher level appearance somewhere. And on Evolve, I was not expecting it. I didn't even have it on my radar. But yeah, that is, whoo. If you haven't seen Eli Knight, just type it in your phone right now and you'll find out what I'm talking about.
Well, let me tell you about Jaquan McNair. Jaquan McNair
go for
is
it.
an incredible, I mean, he's a guy who has I can't remember the exact college he went to, but I mean, first of all, when you look at him, you're gonna be like, oh, this guy.
Right.
I mean, he's got hops. He's got all of the things that WWE wants. And again, as a matter of fact, you can go and look at one of the recent pre-shows for Ashe Wrestling, and you can see Jaquan McNair on there, who just is amazing, absolutely amazing. He was part of a 6-man scramble. He was a part of a tag match. Like, he's just that guy. So, and again, Mike Cunningham, you can check out at Nightmare Factory's YouTube channel. He reminds me of a Von Erich. That's who Mike Cunningham reminds. He's from Texas. He's got a full Von Erich vibe to him. Just wholesome, built like a Von Erich. I mean, he literally is a cross between Kevin and Kerry Von Erich. It's the guy's special. The guy's special. So fully endorsed by Cody Rhodes. Like, it's a thing. It's a thing. So shout out to them. I think they'll be great additions to the WWE ID program.
I mean, even that personality alone came through in those few seconds that you had on the mic on Evolve. I was like, whoa, okay, this guy's here. Yeah, it was nice. It was very, very nice. One last thing I want to say real quickly as well, but our viewer Neil Priest beat me to it. But something else happened this week. Happy birthday, belated, of course, to Gerard Bonner. Birthday was the other day.
Thank you, sir.
This week.
Thank you.
Shout out to you. I hope you had a great day. New chapter. We're doing big things, man. We're doing big things. You've got more to come as well. But on that note, guys, we gotta go. I know you want to hear us talk all day. I know. But we gotta go. Guys, you can catch me, of course, on Instagram, Black Wrestling Alliance, putting out all the information, news, and other things on there as well. And until next time, guys, see you later.